Welcome to UNCAGED, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Bharti Rai. Bharti, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, Bharti. I mean, Bharti has an incredible background, over 25 years in life sciences, management consulting, really driving digital transformation, data transformation. We're going to talk to her about all of the things that she's been working on. She's been part of incredible operations such as Novartis and Bayer, or if I'm German, Bayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Deloitte. And we're going to talk about her experiences, some of the things that she's learned along the way. Perhaps she will provide some insights for us about all of these things. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about this path you've been on, Bharti.
Yes, absolutely. So I think like most things, I don't know if I chose the path or the path chose me. So I knew when I came here to do my master's, I went to Carnegie Mellon, great school. I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And one path was going into public finance. So I studied public policy. I loved government and public sector and development. And so I knew I wanted to do that. But I ended up, if you don't know what you want to do, you join consulting because you get to do so many different things. You work with different clients, different problem sets. And I think I realized the skills that I picked up in consulting have carried me through to now.
Right.
So that's really what I did in consulting. And then I decided to join healthcare because I really liked sort of the patient impact and the fact that it's such a complex industry and different pieces and elements. And so that's what I did last 15 years, various roles in life sciences. And you can see none of them connect to the previous role. So that's quite a story we can talk about as well.
Well, it's interesting. I think the beauty of consulting is that you pick up these tools and processes and ways of approaching problems. And so that is always helpful in any role that you end up taking on. And certainly you've worked in some incredible positions in the healthcare and life sciences space. I mean, tell me a little bit about some of the stuff you're seeing in the life sciences marketplace today as they're trying to go deeper with data, go deeper with digital.
Yeah, so I think we are seeing a lot of exciting trends. And I'll, bring it back to, at the end of the day, the healthcare ecosystem and the experience for patients. Like that's the North Star, right? That the industry should be after. I think COVID has accelerated many of these trends. So what I'm seeing is 2 or 3 major shifts. First, it's data and digital is on the C-suite agenda, right? They're not, there were always analytics teams that existed in pharma for years. We always bought tons of data. This has been going on for 20 years. So data, analytics, digital is not new. What's new is it's on the C-suite agenda. So that brings a lot of attention. It brings budget, right? And accountability, scope, authority to do things. But it also brings challenges because the entire company or industry is still operating a certain way, right? The go-to-market model, how you sell, how you think of campaigns and marketing. It's all very sort of traditional and hasn't evolved all that much as technology has evolved. So really technology has outpaced.
There's also the whole compliance piece there, right?
Yeah.
That's a big challenge. I can tell you that I was one of the early pioneers of social media data. And I had several pharma clients. And I remember one client basically receiving a report that we gave, and she said, "I'm going to act like I never received this report." Because, there were all these rules, like certain data you don't want to necessarily, know about, right?
Yeah. But I think that, you can use that as an opportunity. I know that compliance is brought up very often in pharma. But I do think, my view is always like, whatever the problem, there's a solution, right? So I think if there are areas or boundaries that you can sort of still live within, but continue to innovate, that's where you get progress. Otherwise, there will always be an excuse. Yes, I mean, you can't do anything about the compliance, because I agree with the fact that patient data should be highly confidential, right? It should
Correct.
not be. So I agree with the reasons why the compliance has been put in place. Now, the question is, how can you run a business and continue to innovate on data and digital as a result? And this is why I love the industry, because it's a challenging problem set.
Yeah, and I think it really feels like we're at this moment where we're seeing a whole bunch of stuff collide all at once, which are opening up tons and tons of new things. What are you seeing out there in terms of the healthcare space, the medtech space, that excites you?
So a couple of things. So first, I think, as I mentioned, data digital, finally, they are on the C-suite agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I think there's a lot of scope for partnerships across the ecosystem. And a lot of digital health companies, as you know, are coming and going, and, funding boom, and some are saying it's going to be a bust soon.
Yeah.
But it's still very, very innovative. And there are tons of people out there trying to disrupt our model, which severely needs to be disrupted.
Right.
So I think the scope for pharma, biotech, other life science companies to partner across the ecosystem, where they can either provide more information easily to patients, where they can help them stay on medication, help them with services around the medication,
Right.
and truly look at what we say is experience, right? Because the one thing I think pharma has done and now trying to change is our approach with customers and patients is very transactional. It's campaign, it's medical, it's sales talking to them, it's account management talking to them. They even call into our call center, and none of this talks to each other to form an experience for a customer. So that's the other trend that I'm seeing slowly, though, is we're using all these buzzwords around CX and all of that, but really you have to change internal processes, organizational silos, mindset, funding, incentives, for us to truly take it.
What's the barrier? I mean, you're outlining something that really appeals to me, this idea of like this holistic perspective, right? So you're saying we have these silos, they exist, we know they exist. Is it literally just the bureaucratic issues here, or are there real reasons why they have to be kept as silos?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a mix of both, right? So if you just look at commercial, medical, and patient services, there's a reason why there are different departments. And you mentioned compliance. Yeah. So, the way we are engaging with customers from a commercial angle is different from a medical angle. And certainly then with patients, there is a real firewall between the support we provide patients from patient support services type departments, which is after the prescription is written, to the early part in commercial, where we're just trying to build awareness. So there is a legitimate reason why these groups are separate, but that doesn't mean you cannot be customer centric, right? So I think the other barrier is, I would say, mindset, because people are used to running these as separate groups. And so what is CX, right? Is it another department that cuts across? Is it really just the role of marketing then to cut across all of these and look at it from a customer's angle? So I think it's inertia, it's mindset, and it's some tough calls, right? To change.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned a couple things, though, that are promising, which is that this is now on the C-suite's agenda. I often thought about this kind of pandemic moment and in relation to the C-suite agenda in an interesting fashion, which was anybody who's ever sat in a boardroom meeting, there's always the one person on the board that says no to everything. And I felt that over the last couple of years with the pandemic, because things were so stressed across the board, that one no person finally was silenced. Everyone finally was like, okay, we're going to do something this time. And that's exciting. I'd be curious, Bharti, you have a front row seat at the top of these businesses. What did you see during the last couple of years, the challenges and maybe some of the good stuff that's starting to bubble out of it?
Yeah. So I think, with the good news that it's on the sort of the top agenda, right?
Hmm.
Also brings some challenges as well as opportunities. I think from a challenges perspective, because it's top agenda,
Hmm.
one thing that happens is everybody wants to get into data and digital now, right?
Hmm.
So you have multiple teams, and the bigger the company, the bigger the silos, right? You have global, you have local, you have multiple departments all trying to talk to the same vendors, the same digital ecosystem. So the tendency to have a lot of redundant capabilities that don't talk to each other and then you can't scale, that's
Mm.
sort of one issue.
Right.
The other is talent, right? So, okay, you've decided data and digital is important. How do you organize who is going to decide what talent to bring in? Because traditional roles are not even well versed to know whether the talent they're bringing in is the right talent,
Mm.
or they're saying the right things but they don't know actually how to implement or affect scale, right? So, and then how much, right? Talent management, when you attract some of this talent, how do you retain them? So I
Hmm.
think the opportunity has been, we've done a great job in attracting actually our hiring and trying to get the right talent. The opportunity is, how do you create the conditions where this talent is nimble, agile, they are used to quick decision making, they are used to state of the art technology on which they can work, and those
Hmm.
things are not there, right? It will take time. So I think those are some of the issues. The other real issue, if you ask me what is really going to come in our way,
Hmm.
is a very practical resource allocation question.
Okay.
Right? So if you have $1,000, where are you going to invest it in the company? Knowing data and digital is important. How will you make those decisions? And depending on how mature the organization is, right? If the foundation is not there,
Hmm.
implementing the right tech takes time and is costly,
Yeah.
right? But in the meantime, you want quick wins and results. You don't want to wait for 3 years before you have the best data platform and the best MarTech stack before you start seeing, results. And then the other very real thing related to resource allocation is, how do you kind of balance short-term performance
Hmm.
with pivoting where the company needs to go long term? Because you have to
Such an interesting challenge. It seems like we always get caught between this short-term pressure that the C-suite feels from the street and the longer term cycles that some of this stuff works on.
yeah.
And so, when you look at the data that's actually getting utilized, and people talk about, data-driven insights, data-driven business,
Yeah.
what is the data that's driving the business? I mean, are people doing it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So pharma, life sciences, I think we've come such a long way
Hmm.
in truly using data to drive decision making. And my experience in the last few years, it's been an amazing, personally fulfilling journey, because
Hmm.
you see these things, right? What is the data? It's really, we have an abundance of data available to life sciences, and we're so lucky in the US that we can actually know at the patient level exactly what the journey has been without
Hmm.
knowing who the patient is, right? Obviously, that's
Right.
HIPAA compliant, but you can piece together how complex the journey is, how long it takes patients sometimes to even get the proper diagnosis. And they've been bouncing from doctor to test to hospital, back to specialist. So you can
Yeah.
see how complicated the journey is. So we have no dearth of data. The question is, what is the right set of teams, both on the data digital side as well as pure sales, marketing, market access? Both need to be data savvy, right?
Hmm.
You need to know what the right questions to ask are. It's a team sport. It's not a
Yeah.
data digital analytics sport, right? Just to upskill yourself and suddenly the company will be based on data driven insights. No, it's a big
Right.
company wide problem to solve.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening because I was thinking that that is the biggest factor, which is to say, if every decision-making process starts to factor in this data cycle, this data that's available, and it being utilized in a specific way before certain decisions can be taken, then obviously it starts to become the lifeblood of the organization, and perhaps it can touch all the departments, no?
And we have to model the way, right? Because it really does start from the top.
Mm-hmm.
So if the top is aligned that we will be making certain decisions based on data, whether it's market resource allocation decisions, whether it's who we target, whether it's funding or marketing campaigns, right? Whatever the decisions are, if the top is modeling the fact that we are going to look at this, what is show me the data,
Mm-hmm.
it will start to trickle down in the entire organization. And then, it snowballs, right? And it
Right.
just flows from there.
So Bharti, I mean, it's amazing to talk to you about this stuff. And clearly this is changing everything and moving the industry forward. Are there specific areas that you're seeing kind of more excitement or more growth in than others? Is there some interesting stuff perhaps happening in the use of machine learning that's being applied in an exciting area?
Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of progress in the whole advanced analytics, machine learning, AI space.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with great power comes great responsibility. So we have to make sure we're utilizing it in the right places and we are answering the right questions that need to be answered, right? Otherwise,
Right.
it's a fad.
Yeah.
So I think huge progress there, both on the R&D side as well as commercial. Probably more on the R&D, I would say. Commercial, I think, is still getting there. The other thing is a lot of partnerships with
Mm-hmm.
the whole digital health ecosystem, which is really exciting. And when you can apply that to patient experience truly and simplifying that, it's very exciting. And then I think the real opportunity, honestly, will come if we can partner more within the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
You have the providers, you have the payers, you have pharma, you have other players. I think broader partnerships to impact and think holistically about the disease state
Right.
versus the product you're selling.
Right.
Where I'd love for us to go. And then everything has to follow to make that happen, right? Because it's great to have an idea and a bold vision, but you've got to change things internally within companies to make it happen.
Yeah. And I love listening to you speak about the space because you have a very clear vision of where we are and where there is area for continued improvement. I guess I'm curious, as we find ourselves in this futuristic year of 2022, what you think might be on the horizon this year for the life science space in terms of data and digital growth. Are there going to be some topics, some exciting things that we're going to see in the near future? Or is this still just going to be kind of like just a continued acceleration of the path we're on?
No, I think where we've seen, again, I think almost everybody has got a solid foundation in data, digital analytics in most companies across life sciences. Now they're at slightly different stages of maturity, where I think we'll see the industry starting to hopefully have a point of view is how do you really make this happen actionably at scale across the whole company? And then, the other thing that I think we are starting to hear a lot about in life sciences is CX, right? Everybody wants to be a customer-centric business. So what does that mean? And what does it look like if healthcare is a customer-centric business in very specific, tangible ways? And so personalization is one thing that I hear a lot of pharma companies talking about, right? We want to talk to customers in more personalized ways, really change engagement. So that's a big topic that I think almost everybody is working on. The question is, where's the proof? What does it actually look like? And also, let's not be too impatient, right? Waiting for the proof, because having led analytics myself, you're not going to solve all of this through an ROI marketing mix review annually, right? Some of these things take time, and we know when a business is customer centric, the sales, the growth follows.
Right.
But for pharma, it's I think some patience is required. The other thing I would say is that a lot of companies have gone through this hype cycle of investing in data and digital, then
Hmm.
few years, then saying, okay, what are the results?
Hmm.
Has this been good? Should I downsize? Should I continue to invest? So kind of questioning the investment. And what I'd say to that is it's an absolutely correct question,
Right.
because there is a tendency for companies to overinvest and you just go all in, all big, and then you realize that maybe I wasn't thoughtful about the roles I created, the amount of people I added, the systems I invested in, right? Maybe I need to reinvest because I didn't pick the right technologies.
Hmm.
So I think uh, companies should be a bit careful about the areas in which they're investing when they say they care about data and digital. And
Yeah.
then keep looking for sort of these, or at least milestones that have these quick wins along the way as you're changing the entire foundation. And then ultimately, hopefully, you're changing the go to market model. Otherwise, if
Yeah.
we're doing things the same old way, but we're just putting technology in place, that's not really digital transformation.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And it seems to me that there are a lot of the right areas being explored,
Yeah.
but perhaps we need to go be a little bit more thoughtful then about how we apply it and dig deeper in some of these areas. I mean, it sounds like the CX space is the right area to be playing in, but perhaps we need to think through where we might end up, what we really want to be achieving, how this actually might impact the full operation. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's absolutely right. And
Yeah.
I think now that you articulated, I think one of the things and a trend, right, we need to figure out is until life sciences, healthcare sees data and digital as IT tech topics,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a separate set of leaders driving that,
Mm-hmm.
versus the business is run by the traditional leaders,
Mm-hmm.
these two things will not be so interconnected, right?
Okay.
So the problem that I hear from, because I've spoken to a lot of peers in other companies as well, right? The problem I hear is we are behind it, we invest in it, we've got a good foundation going, but why are we not seeing results from digital transformation, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think part of the problem is it's not about the technology and the foundations and all of that. It is how are you pulling in digital into your core way of doing business.
I agree. That's a
And
wonderful point. I couldn't agree more with you. I
yeah,
mean, I done some personal research in the machine learning space, and one of the complaints in the research that I analyzed was that people always would say that exactly that about machine learning. Well, we've invested all this, but I'm not seeing the results.
yeah,
And what you quickly realized is that whilst they made an investment in the technology, they made no investment on the processes or the
correct,
shift in operations that
correct.
would be needed to apply the technology. And so I think that that is the dilemma with all of these progressive ideas and areas, because if you don't make that investment in the processes and the operations, it's a shiny object, but that's it.
That's
That
right.
doesn't do anything, right?
And I've, because a lot of it also goes into the talent, right? So a lot of people
Mm.
ask me, are you a data digital leader? And I say no. I mean, you can see my background. I have no technology or data, honestly, in my background. I say I'm a public policy major, right? So
At Carnegie Mellon, come
yeah,
on.
well,
Come on, Bharti.
where I was forced to do one tech course, right? But I say I'm a strategy and commercial leader, right?
Okay.
Who happens to be data and digital lingual. I
Ah.
get data and digital.
Hmm.
And we don't have a lot of that, because I think in companies, people still think of, are you a data digital person? Are you a
Hmm.
sales and marketing leader?
Right.
Well, the two need to be together now, right?
Yeah.
If you
No,
have
you're
to
absolutely
build the
right.
next type of commercial leader, you need bilingual talent.
Well, Bharti, it's been amazing talking to you. I hope everyone listens to the ideas that you're pushing here, because this is really where we need to be moving the broader space. We've been speaking with Bharti Rai. She's been sharing some of her learnings from 25 years in the life sciences space and what she's been working on as a digital transformation expert, a data expert, and trying to make these pharma companies embrace some of these ideas and move them to the next level. Bharti, if someone wanted to reach you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me a message, and it'd be great.
Excellent. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on Uncaged Day, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.